Okay, today we're going to talk about making products. And generally, how we make products at Hill Country Chocolate is I get to decide. That's how we make products.
That's not at all true. That's not how we make products.
No, today we're going to go through our decision process on how we decide what chocolates to make at Hill Country Chocolate. Wouldn't just say chocolates. We're talking confections. I would say experiences, anything we offer for sale at the chocolate factory. I would say it's an informal evaluation process on how we do it. So we thought today that Melanie and I would go through, have a little bit of discussion, and we differ a little bit in the way we approach things. So this will be sort of fun. So Melanie, how do we decide what we make?
Well, you typically walk through and drop some bomb of some ridiculous something that no one's ever going to buy. And I have to tell you, no, we're not making that. And then you rein it in a little bit and it turns out to be a really good product, which super annoys me when that happens because I don't like it when you're always right.
Not always right.
That's true.
I'm not always right at all. But one thing we do try to do is that we have a rule. So let me back off. I think this is a good thing to know about our business. And I guess everybody's business is different. But at our business, we have a motto. And the motto is make people happy. That's really our motto. So we go with that motto in determining what products we sell because we're not going to be caught up into this idea that, well, we're only craft chocolate, we're only bean to bar chocolate, we're only snobby chocolate, and we're only craft. I mean, we basically decide if we can create a product that makes people happy, then we'll make it.
Well, yeah, because we're only all the way into bankruptcy, or you can make what people are actually going to buy and what they're looking for. So I think that's what we try to do. We try to be creative. We base things sometimes on what we actually like. I don't ever like anything, so it's usually on whatever Dan likes. And just kind of go from there. We think the customer's going to want it.
We just don't think it should be pretentious. And so our goal is that often we'll say, look, just try this out. We'll see what happens. And we've got some really good notable examples. I'll give you a couple that are just kind of standouts. One, we start every wine tasting with usually a chocolate covered graham cracker. And the idea being is that graham cracker is something people are familiar with. We don't make the graham cracker. It's a Nabisco graham cracker, but we do cover it in some of the world's best chocolate. So it's real interesting what happens when you take something that is absolutely amazing. You combine it with a flavor that you're comfortable with. And that sort of epitomizes who we are. I think we like to take those familiar flavors and take it to a comfort level that anybody can approach it. I think this last year, we sort of celebrated the TikTok craze of jalapeños and Sauvignon Blanc. And, we decided we would make a jalapeno peanut brittle in our style, which when we were going to use real jalapenos in the peanut brittle, we were going to source.
No food coloring.
No food coloring. We're not going to be green.
No.
We were going to source some of the best candied jalapenos we could find in the country to make this product. And it turned out to be spectacular in flavor. But really, the big sell was convincing a winery to take a peanut brittle and pair it with their wine. And that's a stretch because they're looking at that as like a candy. What are you doing here?
I think they thought you were totally crazy.
They thought we were crazy. But then what we found out is that it was spectacular. And that herbalness and the spiciness and really brightened up an otherwise Sauvignon Blanc that people might not feel is that approachable for some people that are only red wine drinkers. And it became a viral hit. And wineries that were doing that pairing were selling out of jalapeno brittle because of that level of just pushing and trying to find things that people wanted. And honestly, that idea started from TikTok because people were dropping frozen jalapenos inside of a Sauvignon Blanc, which, again, if you're a wine purist, you're just going to freak out on that. But if you step back for a minute and think about what consumers want to try, it could be a really cool idea.
It was a cool idea. And I don't think you can be a purist when it comes to being any kind of a drinker. I mean, we know that anyone who's ever had an alcoholic beverage in their hand, they've probably wanted something to eat with it, usually a munchie something. I mean, I grew up watching Cheers and Norm had a bowl of peanuts in front of him on the bar all the time because you want to munch something while you're drinking. And I think not everyone's as pretentious as they need this full-blown charcuterie with, 7 cheeses that you can't pronounce and 4 meats that you're not sure what they are. They might want something familiar like a confection, and the peanut brittle just knocked it out of the park on that one.
So we're going to get into how we pick products, but let's talk about some real fun stuff first. Notable failures, like products that we decided to do that were just notable failures.
Oh, wow. Which one comes to your
Well,
brain?
I'll tell you when. I wouldn't call it a overt failure because there are some loyal Hill Country chocolate customers out there who still come in and ask for it. But buttercreams probably didn't. We were not too successful selling buttercreams.
Well, we didn't push those enough either. And by push those, I mean we didn't go around like Girl Scouts to the nursing homes to the people who remember what a buttercream is and really try to push it. I think they're good. I personally love buttercreams if they're not like some weird flavor. Peppermint buttercreams are my favorite. And for a couple years, we still continued to do those just at the holidays because they were the most popular buttercream that we had. I think it's just, I could be wrong, but I think people expect more from us. They want something totally different. They're not trying to find the same kind of chocolates that they can get in the aisle at Walgreens. They want to wow something, which would be like a Dubai bar that I also don't like.
Yeah, so we obviously did not jump on the Dubai bar train, and in some respects I regret that because obviously it was extremely popular. So financially it would have been really good for us to do. I also think, here we have this dichotomy, right? We've got peanut brittle on the one hand that worked really, really, really well, and buttercreams, which really didn't. And I think part of it is it's who we are. So I would say one of the first things on product is you should be selling products that you believe in and that work for your customer base. And our customer base here is pretty wine intensive. We are kind of declare ourselves as experts in wine and tasting, wine and chocolate pairing. So buttercreams, to be honest, just weren't the best pairing products.
Well, but to be fair too, and this is something that everyone should think about in their business, no matter what your business is, because this happened to me at the bakery too. When I first opened, I tried doing all kinds of things that were big failures. And it was probably a combination of reasons why. I don't know that we couldn't sell buttercreams today. We haven't revisited that and really tried that. We're a lot better at packaging now. We understand how to display the chocolates better now so people can see what it is. We are a million times better at telling our story and how we make things and why we make things. I think we could, I don't know, maybe I'm just being bullish, but I think we could sell anything here.
Wow, that's Melanie taking a bigger stab. So the first thing was like, when you first get started, how do you decide what products to make? I would say that you should make products that you're first good at.
That's what I was going to say, was that you know how to make.
You know how to make. There's a lot of discernment today in customers that they are, today people are experts. They're going to Google you. They're going to take a picture of your product with ChatGPT and they're going to analyze it and know what it should look like and what it should taste like before they actually taste it. Melanie has this ability. She can actually determine if she's going to like a product before she's actually tasted it, before I've actually made it.
100%. You can just run an idea by me and I can tell you if it's disgusting.
So there's that. I think part of it is make something you're good at, or at least your practice. I think that's a really good one. And then you got to hope that you're making a product that people will want to buy because that's going to be the big connection. But I think the second one probably is customer feedback.
Huge.
And the only way you're going to get that is testing. You're going to need to make it, try it, and then not be hurt if it doesn't sell or if you try something and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to scratch it and start over and do something different. You can't necessarily listen to every single customer and make every single thing that they want you to make. But you can listen and you can see what the vast majority are looking for, what their expectations are for you. And if they're expecting you to have buttercreams because you just did all this advertising on buttercreams, well, then by God, you better keep making those buttercreams because they're expecting it. But if you haven't, put that tunnel vision on yourself for a specific product, try something new, try something different, change it up. If it's not working, change it.
And customer feedback comes from strange places. I mean, we did an event last year called Tomahawks and Truffles, where we did this event where we took tomahawk steaks and we put ancho chili and cacao and also I think espresso and grilled them off caveman style. We did corn creme brulee, but we did this wall of bacon. And the bacon was glazed with chili and brown sugar, and then we roasted it, and then we glazed it again with bourbon and agave, I think. And then we put caramelized cacao nibs on top. And by the way, we hung it from a clothesline. I know it's kind of over the top, but that's what we did. And I never in a million years thought that would be a very cult
I don't know why you wouldn't think that.
Well,
You're a ranch boy in Texas. Who doesn't love bacon? Now, I will give you, it's a little odd that it was so requested in a chocolate factory. That's odd, but we're a chocolate factory in Texas.
It is. And by the way, it's one of the most requested recipes that we get at the chocolate factory. And we serve it only
Yeah.
on Saturdays. And we usually serve it as part of our more higher end tastings, although people order it sometimes for any tasting in advance. But it's turned out to be something, again, we would not have sat down opening a chocolate factory and saying, we're going to sell bacon. That wouldn't have been something that would have been on our list, but it came back from that feedback. So customer feedback, I think, is a really good part. So what's the hardest part about adding a new product? Is it the recipe?
Packaging.
I didn't even say that.
It's recipe for you. You do more of the recipe development stuff. I just come along and taste it and tell you if it's good or not, if I think I can sell it or not. But packaging is the hard part.
Yeah, the recipe thing, let's start there and we'll talk about packaging and then I'll tell you how they work together because honestly, Melanie plays a huge role here in determining what recipes I actually work on because in fact, we'll just start with that. We don't make a recipe here if we can't package it.
Absolutely.
I think that's fair. So we typically work backwards. So we'll think about something and then we won't even go into the development part of it until we start to think through how would we package it. And if Melanie gives us the green light that we can package it, then we'll go through the process of actually developing the recipe.
Well, and that's not true. Sometimes we make a recipe and it's really good. And then we have to say, okay, I can't package this the way that it is. Dan, you got to go back and figure out a different shape, size, whatever, so that I can fit it into something that exists out there.
Yeah, so we're going to go a little nerdy here, but we're going to give you inside baseball about how we do recipe development. So what happens is if once Melanie decides that we're going to go down a path and we're going to do this sort of product, so she hands it back to me and I start working on the recipe. But the very first thing I do actually is we have an AI system at Rocket Tools where we go out to the market and we look at every other person in the world that we can find that's making this product. And we look at how it's selling, how they're positioning, how it's packaged, what the pricing is, what kind of products they're using, how could we be different? Could we make a product that's better? And sometimes you look out there and there's people doing some products that are just fantastic. You're never going to get better. I mean, we've got a chocolatier in town, Alicia, who does liquor-filled chocolates, right? I'm going to tell you right now, we're never, ever going to do that. We're not going to compete against her.
No.
She's the best probably in the country at doing that. So we're not going to compete with her at doing that. But we do get that research. So the research of the recipe actually starts with competitor research. We're looking at what the competitors are actually doing. The second thing is we have another AI system where we have all our recipes online. And that has been fantastic because we can quickly spin up the recipe based on what we know about the way we create chocolate and confections. So by the time we take something into the kitchen to do a test recipe with it, I would say it works 90% of the time.
Or more.
And that cuts down our prep time. So we can literally pretty confidently walk into the factory and say, we're going to produce it. Now, I will tell you that the first time we do a large scale production where we're doing 1,000 chocolates at a time, there's always a little bit of a risk. I call it YOLO, a little bit YOLO live once. You're going to try this recipe out and see if it actually works. Because sometimes even in small scale, they'll work. But by the time we go into the factory, we have a pretty good idea that this is going to work. So imagine now what happens, right? Melanie shines the green light off. We do the competitor research. So we know that we think we can sell it and we can be different. We develop a recipe that's going to work 90% of the time. And by the time we make it, Melanie packages it and we can take it and sell it. And that's typically our cycle on how we go through that process.
Yep. 100% fair.
So next one up is have you made things that didn't sell? Yes, we have.
Yes.
And, we've made things that we based all that process that I just told you about.
Yes, we've made things, labeled it, packaged it, invested in the packaging for it, and then decided later on, it's just not moving like we wanted it to. Or sometimes it even comes down to not so much did it not sell, because things sell. Do they sell enough? And do we have enough outlets for it to go to? I mean, sometimes our recipes are scaled pretty large. And if we don't have enough outlets, if only, one person really wants this item, that doesn't warrant to continue to make it.
Yeah. And this is where it gets incredibly complicated. And which is why I think Melanie and I work really well together because, and I started off the concept of how we sell things based on what we package. because honestly, you could make a great product and you package it poorly and it won't sell.
Absolutely.
Also, you can have a product that's not selling very well and change the packaging. And guess
Mhm.
what? It's going to sell. And then finally, you can do some really interesting things. We just did this last year with toffee. So you can take a product that generally is pretty popular, like toffee. This is a great example for us.
Mhm.
And we didn't just change the packaging, we changed the shape of the product. So we came back into the factory and we took it from being like bonbon size, like maybe 1 by 1 inch and a little bit maybe a half inch tall. And we took it to like maybe, I don't know, like maybe a third of an inch tall, almost the size of a graham cracker. We made it bigger, and Melanie packaged it in more visible packaging with ribbon. People could see it. It was a bigger piece of product, looked like it was more value, and it sold off shelves. And it was
Yeah.
the same exact recipe. The only thing different was the shape of the chocolate and the packaging.
Right. And the size of it, which, you can do too. I mean, it's endless, the different sizes of things that you can put in there. But, in the chocolate world, you have a single piece, 2 piece, 4 piece, 6 piece, all the way up to a 60 or 75 piece box of chocolates that you can put in there. So you just got to find the sweet spot. What are people willing to pay for that product and what fits in the box?
And then the final little thing to make it even more difficult to determine that is that there's the product and then there's the packaging. And there's another thing, it's the timing. Certain products in chocolate in our
Mhm.
world, they sell at certain times of the year. And this year they really don't. And so that's another thing. I mean, the classic one is you're not going to sell an Easter bunny in October. It's just not going to happen. But
Mm-mm.
interestingly enough, you don't sell as much toffee in like the summer or the spring as you do before Christmas,
At
which
the
is at
holidays,
the
yeah.
holidays, which is a hugely popular product. And so kind of varies on that. And that can make it more complicated for you to understand, if a product's actually selling and whether or not you need to pull it or not. Who gets to decide if we pull a product from the store?
Me.
Melanie.
That's not true. Sometimes you walk up there and say, "Look, we're not doing this anymore." But sometimes we just need to focus our time on something else that is selling. I mean, it has to fit in your production schedule as well. If it doesn't fit in your production schedule because you have this one item that takes 3 days to make and it's just not what's paying the bills, then you cut it. You move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and then the thing I would go to, this next two questions kind of go together, and it has to do with the fact that customer feedback is fantastic. And if you're not careful, your customers will tell you things that can be really good, but often you can hear things from a few vocal customers and they won't be from the masses. So your tendency is to say, yeah, when you listen to a customer, you kind of think, okay, and then you just file it away. You should listen to your customer because occasionally
Mhm.
your customers come along with some really great ideas. And we recently had, and we haven't really launched this product online yet, but we have it in the store. We recently had a group of very loyal customers of ours came into the shop and they said, you need to make a peanut brittle with honey bourbon. And I remember they said, you need to do
Mhm.
it because Garrison Brothers Distillery in town, one of the most famous Texas distilleries for bourbon, they make a honey bourbon, basically, right?
Yeah.
What's it called? Honeydew bourbon, I think, or something like that. Anyway,
I don't know.
I said, well, I need to taste it, of course, because I needed to do research. And so I tasted it and it was unreal. It was delicious. And then, of course, I'm always going to like Guild Lily. So I thought, okay, what if we combine it with bacon, right? So we did a honey bourbon bacon brittle. And that all started from a customer who came in with that idea. Now, that's a really good example of listening to a customer. Now, whether or not that
Mhm.
product sells, I don't know. We haven't put it online yet. We'll have to see, but it sounds good.
It does sound good.
So let's talk about this one. Like, what's the biggest mistake that small businesses make with their product line?
I think the biggest mistake, and you led with that, was just being so stuck in what you do and not wanting to budge. You've got to change for whatever reason, for just customer demand, production scheduling, packaging availability, a whole slew of reasons, but you have got to be able to change, which also means, I guess, you really shouldn't just be a one-hit wonder. If all you can make is one item, you better be real good at that, because if you ever have to change, what are you going to change to?
Yeah, so Melanie's heard me say this a lot, but I wish we could make one product. It would be amazing.
You've tried to make us make
I've
one
tried to make one
product.
product. It would be amazing. My favorite candy bar is Chick-a-Stick. And it's made by this company, the Atkins Candy Company in Lufkin, Texas. I think I'm getting this right. I hope I got the details right. And they make this chicken stick. And they probably make other stuff too, but this is the one they're known for. And I've always kind of admired a company that can make a legacy product that can be around forever. And that's what they make. And I'm thinking, man, wouldn't that be such a simple life? And it's not, because there's complexities in running a company like that. And I didn't mean it to be that way, but it's just so simple. And the flip side of it is, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they make too many products.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you better keep the quality level the same throughout the products. And so you can't have, I'll let you in, and we're going to talk about like inside baseball here. And this is something we're going through right now. I'm going to be real honest with you, is that we have never made fudge.
True.
We're an artisanal chocolate company. So we're snobby, right? I'm just joking, but we make artisan chocolates. And so we've never really made fudge. And not only that, we had a very prominent fudge company here in Fredericksburg that, was our neighbor and our friends. And then they retired and sold the brand. And I think they're not making a lot of fudge anymore. And we have a lot of customers that come in and wanting fudge. But we're thinking, like, how do we incorporate a fudge into our product set? How do we go through that, approach? And then furthermore, can we make really good fudge? Because we haven't really done it on scale before. And so the idea here is that you can make too many products and you can't keep your quality standards up. I'm blessed as one of the owners here, because I have a team of people that they actually execute a lot of products, like 30 something products, extremely well. But it didn't happen day one. I mean, those product sets are built over time. And even today, Melanie and I walked through I don't know if you have them with you. You can pull them out here in the podcast, but we walked through the factory today and we looked at the caramels, and we taste test every batch. And we looked at our caramels and we thought that they were too dark. They taste delicious, but we didn't like the texture and the shape. So I guess if you're starting out, I would start out on products that you know how to make. And I would start out on a few that you can make really, really well. And you can really focus on that total experience from packaging all the way from beginning to end.
I think just keep an open mind, You got to be able to do what you do really well, because that's how you're going to gain your confidence and sell stuff. And you got to not be afraid to change.
So final question here. You've kind of already answered this a little bit, but what would you tell a small manufacturer about managing their product line?
Try it. If you don't see it, use it, feel it, touch it, consume it, whatever your product is that you're selling, if you don't go through and do that yourself from time to time, how do you know it's a good product still? How do you know that it's at the standard it was when you trained your staff to make that? And do your research. Like you said, when we're talking about doing research, we don't just research competitors to necessarily, copy what they're doing verbatim. We want to see what the expectation is out there, because that's how you sell the product. There's a few items, I guess, in the world that you can totally reinvent and repackage and put it in a totally different presentation and hand it to someone and they're going to buy it. Something that's been around forever. But that's not usually the case. Usually people have a preconceived notion of what they're looking for, which, since we're being transparent, is my personal stumbling point with launching fudge. Because for me, if we're going to launch a fudge line, I don't want it to look like and be packaged the same way that fudge has been packaged and done for the last 100 years. I'm not looking for the, clear plastic box with the snap-on lid. It has to fit our product line. It has to be different. So I'm constantly looking at different options and different ways that I would want to present our fudge. I'm confident we can make a good fudge. I don't have any question about that. I just think that if it's going to be in our product lineup, it's got to match, it's got to go. So I'm keeping my eyes open and listening to suggestions and seeing what's up. So anytime you want to send me on another trip, I'll go do some research.
Yeah, and I think my closing comment on it too would be that you should, of all the things we told you, I think that's really solid advice. I think the final one too is that for us, at least, we've got to be passionate about the product. We've got to be able to tell a story about it. So if you ever walk in Hill Country Chocolate, you're going to hear me especially, but you're going to hear all my staff. They're going to hand you a chocolate. They're going to accompany it with a story about where it came from, why we produce it, how we do it. And I think we want to have that story. And if we're not passionate about it, we don't need to be.
No, I agree. I agree.
Well, I hope this was helpful. If you like this podcast, please download it, like and subscribe, and always leave comments because we try to respond to those and they make good content for future videos and podcasts. Thanks for joining us today.